Welcome, my friends, to a journey we're about to embark on, together a journey into the quiet strength that lies within each of us. In a world that often feels chaotic, where worries whisper in our ears, anger flares in our hearts, and disappointment can weigh us down, finding a compass for our inner landscape is more vital than ever. You, my seasoned companions who have navigated the currents of life for decades, understand perhaps more deeply than anyone the ebb and flow of emotions. You've seen successes and setbacks, joys and sorrows, and through it all, you've continued to learn and grow. It's precisely this wealth of experience that makes you the perfect audience for what we're about to explore: the timeless wisdom of Stoicism. Now, don't let the word Stoicism conjure images of emotionless statues or stern philosophers perched on high. Quite the opposite. True Stoicism, as we'll discover, is about mastering our emotions, not eradicating them. It's about finding a practical path to inner peace, a way to navigate the turbulent waters of life with a steady hand and a calm mind. It's a philosophy, yes, but more importantly, it's a toolkit for living. It offers us a profound understanding of what is within our control and what is not, and in that understanding lies true freedom. Imagine for a moment a seasoned ship captain navigating a powerful storm. They don't try to stop the wind or calm the waves. They know these forces are beyond their command. Instead, they focus on what they can control: the set of the sails, the steering of the rudder, the vigilance of their crew. They understand the nature of the storm, and they act accordingly with prudence and courage. This, in essence, is the Stoic approach to emotions. We can't always control the external events that trigger our feelings, just as the captain can't control the storm. But we can control how we respond, how we interpret these events, and how we allow them to impact our inner world. This journey we're beginning together won't be a sprint. It's a leisurely walk, a thoughtful conversation. We'll take our time delving into the core principles of Stoicism, not as abstract theories, but as actionable strategies that you can weave into the fabric of your daily life. We'll explore practical techniques for dealing with the often overwhelming forces of anxiety, the corrosive heat of anger, and the heavy shadow of disappointment. And throughout our conversation, we'll draw inspiration from the lives of individuals, both ancient and modern, who embodied these principles, demonstrating their profound effectiveness. Perhaps you've felt that familiar knot of anxiety tightening in your stomach, a worry about the future, about loved ones, about changes in the world around you. Or perhaps the sudden surge of anger has caught you off guard, a flash of irritation at a minor inconvenience, or a deeper resentment towards an injustice. And who among us hasn't felt the sting of disappointment when expectations aren't met, when plans unravel, or when hopes are dashed? These are universal human experiences, and while they can be profoundly uncomfortable, Stoicism offers us a different lens through which to view them, and a powerful set of tools to navigate them. One of the foundational ideas in Stoicism, a concept we'll return to again and again, is the dichotomy of control. This isn't a complex philosophical riddle. It's a simple, yet incredibly potent truth. It states that some things are within our control and some things are not. Things like our opinions, our impulses, our desires, our aversions. These are within our control. We have the power to choose how we think, how we react, what we value. But things like our reputation, our health, to a large extent, the weather, the actions of other people, these are largely outside our control. Think about the wisdom inherent in this distinction. So much of our suffering comes from expending energy, worry, and frustration on things that are simply not in our power to change. Imagine a farmer meticulously tending their fields, doing everything within their power to ensure a bountiful harvest, planting at the right time, fertilizing, watering. But they cannot control the rain or the hail. A Stoic farmer would focus on their actions, their efforts, their diligence, knowing that the outcome, while desired, is ultimately subject to external forces. They would not lament the lack of rain or rage against a hailstorm, for such reactions would be futile and only add to their distress. Instead, they would plan for the next season and focus on what they can do. This isn't about resignation or apathy. It's about intelligent action and inner peace. When we truly grasp the dichotomy of control, we begin to liberate ourselves from the shackles of what the Stoics called externals. We learn to direct our efforts and our mental energy towards the only true domain where we have sovereignty, our own minds, and our own choices. This doesn't mean we become indifferent to the world or to the well-being of others. On the contrary, by focusing on what we can control, our virtue, our character, our actions, we become more effective and more compassionate agents in the world. Consider the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, a man who ruled one of the largest empires in history, facing immense political pressures, wars, and personal tragedies. Yet, his private writings, compiled as meditations, reveal a man constantly striving for inner tranquility, guided by Stoic principles. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This wasn't some abstract philosophical musing for him. It was a practical guide for surviving and thriving amidst the immense responsibilities of his office. When faced with the anxieties of leadership or the disappointments of betrayal, he consistently turned his gaze inward, asking himself, "What is within my control here? How can I respond to this situation in a way that aligns with virtue and reason?" His ability to maintain composure and clarity in the face of adversity was a testament to the power of applying the dichotomy of control. Another example that resonates deeply is that of Epictetus, a former slave who became one of the most influential Stoic teachers. He suffered physical hardship and the indignity of slavery, yet his teachings emphasize that true freedom lies not in external circumstances, but in our internal state. He taught his students that, while they could be physically bound, their minds could remain free. "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters," he famously said. Imagine the profound liberation this idea offers to someone in such a difficult position. He couldn't control his enslavement, but he could control his attitude towards it, his pursuit of wisdom, and his commitment to living virtuously. His life itself was a powerful demonstration of the Stoic principle that our greatest power lies in our judgments and our responses. This concept of directing our attention inwards to our own minds is not about becoming self-absorbed. It's about recognizing that our internal world is the primary source of our well-being. If our thoughts are chaotic, our emotions will follow suit. If our judgments are flawed, our reactions will be unhelpful. But if we cultivate a disciplined mind grounded in reason and virtue, then even amidst external turmoil, we can find a profound sense of peace. In the coming segments, we'll delve deeper into specific techniques for applying this foundational principle to anxiety, anger, and disappointment. We'll explore how to reframe our thoughts, how to practice mindful awareness of our emotions without being swept away by them, and how to cultivate resilience in the face of life's inevitable challenges. We'll discover that Stoicism isn't about suppressing feelings, but about understanding their nature and choosing our response with wisdom and intention. For now, I invite you to simply ponder this idea. What in your life right now is causing you distress? And among those things which are truly within your control and which are not. Just spending a few moments reflecting on this distinction can begin to shift your perspective and lay the groundwork for a more tranquil and fulfilling existence. This is the first step on our journey together, a gentle turning of the gaze inward, a recognition of our own inherent power. And as we continue, you'll find that this power is not only yours to claim, but also to cultivate, leading to a profound sense of mastery over your emotional landscape. Welcome back, my friends, to our shared exploration of Stoicism, a philosophy not of rigid indifference, but of profound inner strength and a remarkably practical approach to living well. In our first conversation, we gently introduced the dichotomy of control, that fundamental Stoic insight that helps us distinguish between what lies within our power and what does not. We saw how this simple distinction, when truly grasped, can begin to liberate us from unnecessary distress, much like a skilled sailor focusing only on the rudder and sails rather than railing against the uncontrollable winds and waves. Today we're going to build upon that foundation, turning our attention to one of the most pervasive emotional challenges we face: anxiety. That gnawing feeling, that restless unease about what might happen, the what-ifs that swirl in our minds and tighten in our chests. For those of us who have lived through many decades, we've likely experienced anxiety in various forms. Concerns for our children and grandchildren, worries about our health, the uncertainty of financial landscapes, or even just the subtle hum of daily stressors. It's a natural human emotion, a warning system perhaps. But when it becomes persistent and overwhelming, it can rob us of our peace and diminish our enjoyment of life. The Stoics, observing human nature with keen insight, understood anxiety deeply. They saw that much of our anxiety stems from our judgments about future events rather than the events themselves. We often create elaborate scenarios in our minds, painting vivid pictures of potential misfortunes, and then react to these mental constructs as if they were already reality. This is where the wisdom of Stoicism offers us a powerful antidote. Consider for a moment the wise counsel of Seneca, another towering figure in Stoic thought. He famously wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Think about that for a moment. How many times have you worried intensely about something only for it to either not happen at all or to unfold in a far less catastrophic way than you had anticipated? The emotional energy expended in that worrying, the sleepless nights, the furrowed brows. Much of that suffering was self-inflicted, born from our own minds, creating future discomfort. One of the key Stoic techniques for dealing with anxiety is what we might call premeditation of evils, or premeditatio malorum. Now, don't let the name mislead you. This isn't about wallowing in negativity or inviting misfortune. Quite the opposite. It's a proactive mental exercise designed to inoculate ourselves against fear by contemplating potential difficulties with a calm, rational mind. Here's how it works. Instead of avoiding anxious thoughts, we deliberately confront them, but from a position of strength and reason. When a worry arises, let's say a concern about an upcoming medical appointment, or a worry about a loved one's well-being, instead of pushing it away or letting it spiral into panic, we gently invite it in. Then we ask ourselves, what is the worst-case scenario here? And if that worst-case scenario were to happen, how would I respond? What resources, both internal and external, would I draw upon? This isn't about becoming morbid. It's about mentally rehearsing resilience. If you consider the seasoned traveler, they don't just hope for a smooth journey, they pack for contingencies. They have a first aid kit, a spare tire, an emergency contact number. They don't dwell on potential disasters, but they are prepared. Premeditatio malorum is about preparing our minds. Let's take a concrete example. Imagine you're feeling anxious about a planned trip, perhaps one you've been looking forward to for a long time. The anxiety whispers, what if the flight is delayed? What if my luggage gets lost? What if I get sick while I'm there? Instead of letting these thoughts overwhelm you, a Stoic approach would be to calmly consider each one. What if the flight is delayed? Well, I would bring a good book, some music, maybe call a friend. I would remind myself that while the delay is inconvenient, my ultimate goal is to reach my destination safely, and patience is a virtue. I can use the time to practice mindfulness, to observe my surroundings without judgment. What if my luggage gets lost? That would certainly be a nuisance. I would report it immediately, buy some essential toiletries and clothes, and focus on enjoying the experience of being in a new place, rather than letting the missing luggage ruin the entire trip. After all, possessions are externals. My experience of the world and my inner peace are not dependent on them. What if I get sick while I'm there? I would seek medical attention, rest, and accept that sometimes our bodies need time to heal. I would remind myself that health, while important, is not entirely within my control, and that my ability to respond with fortitude and acceptance is within my control. By thoughtfully walking through these scenarios, we often find that the worst case is manageable, or at least survivable. And paradoxically, by confronting these fears head-on, we often diminish their power over us. We realize that even if external events don't unfold as we wish, our inner capacity to cope and adapt remains intact. This process allows us to differentiate between actual threats and imagined ones, and to bring our anxieties back down to a more rational, manageable size. This technique is profoundly effective because it aligns perfectly with the dichotomy of control. When we worry, we are often trying to control what is outside our power: the future, the actions of others, random events. Premeditatio malorum shifts our focus back to what is within our power: our preparation, our mindset, our responses. It's about cultivating fortitude, the Stoic virtue of courage in the face of adversity. It's not about being fearless, but about acting bravely despite fear. Consider the renowned psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, Viktor Frankl. He endured unimaginable suffering in concentration camps, losing his entire family. Yet, in his profound book, Man's Search for Meaning, he wrote about the last of the human freedoms to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. While not explicitly a Stoic, Frankl's experience and insights powerfully echo Stoic principles. He couldn't control the horrific external circumstances, but he found meaning and purpose in his response to those circumstances in maintaining his dignity and his inner freedom. His life is a testament to the idea that even in the direst situations, our minds remain our own. Another powerful technique for dealing with anxiety is present moment awareness, or what some Stoics called focusing on what is now. Anxiety by its very nature drags us into the future, speculating about what might go wrong. The antidote is to deliberately bring our attention back to the present moment, to the sensations, sights, and sounds of now. This isn't about ignoring problems or burying our heads in the sand. It's about recognizing that the only moment we truly have power over is this one. The past is gone. The future has not yet arrived. When we anchor ourselves in the present, the elaborate anxieties about the future often lose their grip. You can practice this simply by observing your breath, feeling your feet on the ground, or paying close attention to a simple task, like drinking a cup of tea, noticing the warmth, the aroma, the taste. This isn't just a trendy mindfulness exercise. It's a core Stoic practice. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself in his meditations to focus on the task at hand, to do what is before you as a human being as the law directs. For him, this wasn't just about productivity. It was about maintaining mental composure and preventing the mind from straying into unproductive worries. When anxiety arises, ask yourself, what is truly happening right now? Often the answer is nothing catastrophic. The catastrophe is usually unfolding only in our minds and our fearful projections. By consciously returning to the present, we pull ourselves out of those anxious loops and ground ourselves in reality. This doesn't mean we become complacent about preparing for the future or planning responsibly. Stoicism encourages prudent foresight. We plan, we prepare, we take sensible actions. But once we have done all that is within our power, we release the outcome. Understanding that the future is, in many respects, an external, we do not allow the potential for future difficulties to steal our present peace. So, as we bring this part of our conversation to a close, I invite you to reflect on your own relationship with anxiety. Where does it manifest for you? What triggers it? And how might these Stoic techniques, the calm premeditation of evils and the deliberate practice of present moment awareness, offer you a new pathway to inner calm? Remember, these are not quick fixes, but practices that deepen with consistent effort. Just as a calm sea requires a steady hand on the tiller, a calm mind requires deliberate cultivation. And the journey of cultivating that mind, my friends, is one of the most worthwhile endeavors we can undertake. Welcome back, my friends, to our continuing conversation about mastering our emotions through the enduring wisdom of Stoicism. We've spoken about the foundational dichotomy of control, understanding what is truly ours to command and what isn't. And we've explored practical Stoic techniques for navigating the often murky waters of anxiety. Today we turn our attention to an emotion that can burn brightly and intensely, often leaving a trail of regret in its wake. Anger. Anger is a powerful force, isn't it? We've all felt its heat, that sudden surge of irritation when someone cuts us off in traffic, the slow simmer of resentment when we feel wronged, or the explosive fury in response to injustice. For those of us who have lived through many seasons, we've perhaps seen how unmanaged anger can damage relationships, cloud judgment, and even affect our physical well-being. The Stoics recognized anger not as an inherent evil, but as a misguided judgment, a passionate impulse that, if left unchecked, could lead us away from reason and virtue. Seneca, who wrote extensively on anger in his treatise, On Anger, considered it one of the most destructive passions. He didn't advocate for suppressing anger entirely in the sense of bottling it up, but rather for preventing its destructive grip by addressing its root causes. For Seneca, anger was a temporary madness, blinding us to logic and leading us to actions we later regret. He understood that while the initial spark might be automatic, our reaction to that spark is where our power lies. So, how do the Stoics equip us to deal with this potent emotion? One of their most powerful techniques is what we can call the pause, or the delay tactic. When that initial flush of anger begins to rise, the Stoic advice is to deliberately introduce a delay, a momentary breath, between the trigger and your response. This isn't about ignoring the feeling, it's about creating space for reason to re-enter. Think of it like this. When you're building a fire, you don't just throw on more fuel immediately when a spark appears. You consider the kindling the air. Similarly, when anger sparks the pause, gives us a crucial opportunity to evaluate our judgments. Remember, Stoicism posits that our emotions are often a result of our interpretations of events, not the events themselves. For example, someone cuts you off in traffic and an immediate wave of irritation washes over you. Your first impulse might be to honk gesture or even shout. But if you practice the pause, you take a deep breath. In that tiny moment, you can ask yourself, is this truly an intentional affront designed to harm me? Or is it simply a momentary lapse of judgment by another driver, perhaps distracted or in a hurry, just like I sometimes am? Often in that pause, the intensity of the initial feeling begins to dissipate. We realize that the perceived offense is usually not as dire as our immediate passionate judgment made it out to be. The Stoics understood that anger is often fueled by an exaggerated sense of injustice or personal affront. We believe someone shouldn't have done that or should have known better. But people will act according to their own nature, their own limitations, their own circumstances. Expecting them to always meet our ideal standards is a recipe for constant frustration. This aligns beautifully with the Stoic idea of acceptance of what is. We accept that people are imperfect, that mistakes happen, that external events will not always align with our preferences. This isn't about condoning bad behavior, but about recognizing that our anger at it, while perhaps justified in a moral sense, ultimately harms us more than it harms the perpetrator. Consider Nelson Mandela, a towering figure of our time, who spent 27 years in prison for his beliefs. Imagine the justifiable anger he could have harbored. Yet, upon his release, he chose a path of reconciliation, not retribution. While he certainly felt anger and injustice, he did not allow it to define his actions or cloud his vision for a united South Africa. He chose the pause, the long, patient cultivation of wisdom over immediate destructive rage. His ability to transcend personal grievance for a greater purpose is a powerful testament to the Stoic principle of acting with reason and virtue, even in the face of immense provocation. He embodied the idea that anger, if uncontrolled, simply gives your oppressor more power over you. Another powerful Stoic technique for managing anger is cognitive reframing, or changing the way we look at a situation. When anger flares, it's often because we've assigned a negative, often inflated meaning to an event. The Stoics would encourage us to challenge these initial automatic judgments. For instance, someone criticizes your work and you feel a surge of anger. Your immediate judgment might be, they're attacking me, they don't appreciate my effort. A Stoic would ask you to reframe this. Is this truly an attack, or is it feedback, however clumsily delivered, that I can learn from? Perhaps their intention isn't malicious, but merely a different perspective. Even if the criticism is indeed unjust, reframing it as, their opinion, which I do not have to internalize, can strip it of its power to upset you. Epictetus often taught that it's not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about things. When a situation makes us angry, we should immediately ask ourselves, what opinion or judgment am I holding that is causing this anger? Is it the opinion that I deserve perfect treatment, that others should always act rationally, that life should always be fair? These are opinions, not objective truths, and they are ripe for challenge. Think about the everyday irritations we face. A slow line at the grocery store, a missed appointment. These can trigger anger because we have an implicit expectation that things should run smoothly, that our time shouldn't be wasted. A Stoic would gently remind us that such expectations are often unrealistic. Life is messy, things go wrong. Our anger stems from our resistance to this reality rather than the reality itself. By accepting that inconveniences are a part of life, we disarm much of anger's potential power. Furthermore, the Stoics practiced empathy and universal kinship. When someone frustrates us, it's easy to see them as an antagonist. But the Stoics urged us to remember that we are all interconnected, all striving, all flawed. When someone acts poorly, perhaps they are acting out of ignorance or fear or pain, just as we sometimes do. This perspective doesn't excuse their behavior, but it helps to dissolve the personal animosity that fuels anger. It allows us to view them with a degree of understanding rather than purely with condemnation. Marcus Aurelius. despite being an emperor, constantly reminded himself in his meditations to cultivate compassion and understanding for those who wronged him. He wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they cannot tell good from evil. But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own, and that none of them can harm me." This isn't a cynical view. It's a realistic preparation that enables him to respond with calm reason rather than reactive anger when others inevitably fall short. He was preparing his mind to not be surprised or thrown off balance by common human imperfections. So, as we reflect on anger, let us remember these powerful Stoic tools: the deliberate pause before reacting, allowing reason to intervene; cognitive reframing, challenging our initial, often exaggerated judgments; and cultivating acceptance and empathy, recognizing the shared humanity and imperfections that exist in all of us. These are not about becoming a doormat or denying valid feelings. They are about gaining mastery over an emotion that unchecked can master us. They are about transforming the raw energy of anger into a force that, if properly channeled, can lead to constructive action rather than destructive outburst. And in that mastery lies a profound step towards inner tranquility. Welcome back, my friends, to our ongoing journey into the practical wisdom of Stoicism. We've laid the groundwork with the dichotomy of control, learned how to navigate anxiety with premeditation and presence, and explored techniques for taming the fiery nature of anger. Today we turn our attention to an emotion that can cast a long, quiet shadow over our spirits: disappointment. Disappointment is a universal human experience, isn't it? It's that sinking feeling when hopes aren't met, when plans unravel, when expectations fall short. Perhaps it's a cherished dream that didn't materialize, a career path that took an unexpected turn, a relationship that didn't flourish as you hoped, or even just a simple expectation for a pleasant day that was marred by an unforeseen inconvenience. Unlike the sharp sting of anger or the buzzing unease of anxiety, disappointment often settles in with a quiet ache, a sense of loss or regret. And for those of us who have accumulated many years of life experience, we've undoubtedly faced our share of dashed hopes and unfulfilled desires. The Stoics understood disappointment not as an external event, but as an internal reaction to external events that don't align with our preferences and expectations. Much like anger, disappointment isn't inherent in the situation itself, but in our judgment of it. When we are disappointed, it's often because we've clung too tightly to an outcome that was ultimately outside our complete control. Epictetus, with his profound understanding of human nature, taught that we are disturbed not by things, but by the views we take of them. If we expect the world to always conform to our desires, we are setting ourselves up for constant disappointment. The Stoic path then isn't about eradicating desires, for desire is a natural part of human existence, but about managing our expectations and cultivating a flexible mindset. One of the most powerful Stoic techniques for dealing with disappointment is the practice of negative visualization, sometimes called premeditatio malorum, in a slightly different context than we discussed for anxiety. While for anxiety, we considered how we would respond to worst-case scenarios, for disappointment, negative visualization is about appreciating what we have by contemplating its potential absence or loss. Now, this might sound counterintuitive. Why would we intentionally think about losing something we value? The Stoics would argue that we often take for granted the good things in our lives: our health, our loved ones, our possessions, our opportunities. When these things are present, we barely notice them. But when they are threatened or lost, we are plunged into grief and disappointment. Negative visualization helps us to recalibrate our appreciation. Imagine for a moment that you deeply value your health. Instead of just taking it for granted, spend a few moments contemplating what it would be like to face a significant illness or physical limitation. Feel the weight of that thought, the potential challenges, then return to your current state of health. Doesn't that quiet contemplation suddenly make your present well-being feel like a precious gift rather than an assumed right? This isn't about being morbid. It's about cultivating gratitude in advance and inoculating ourselves against the shock of loss. Similarly, if you're disappointed that a particular project didn't go as planned or a relationship didn't last, consider what you did gain from the experience. Perhaps new skills, valuable lessons, or simply the experience of trying. By contemplating the absence of any opportunity, you can foster appreciation for the one you had even if it didn't end perfectly. This practice is incredibly effective because it transforms our perspective. Instead of being focused on what we lack or what didn't happen, we shift our focus to what we possess and what has been given to us. This helps to lessen the sting of disappointment because we realize that our happiness isn't solely dependent on specific outcomes, but on our ability to appreciate the unfolding of life itself. Think of Ryan Holiday, a modern Stoic writer and practitioner who often speaks about this concept. He shares stories of how deliberately considering the fragility of life and the impermanence of things helps him to live more presently and appreciate what he has rather than being constantly driven by what he doesn't. He applies this not just to grand life events but to simple pleasures like a good meal or a walk in nature, recognizing that even these can be taken away. This practice transforms potential disappointment into profound gratitude. Another crucial Stoic approach to disappointment involves distinguishing between preferred externals and true goods. The Stoics categorize things into good, bad, and indifferent. Good for them was virtue, wisdom, justice, courage, temperance. Bad was the opposite of virtue. Everything else, including wealth, health, reputation, success, and even life itself, were considered indifferent, meaning they don't inherently make us good or bad, happy or unhappy. Some indifferents are preferred, like health and wealth, and some are dispreferred, like illness and poverty, but none are essential for our virtue or inner peace. When we are disappointed, it's often because a preferred external didn't materialize. A job promotion didn't come through. A goal wasn't reached. A trip was canceled. While these are certainly dispreferred outcomes, the Stoics would remind us that they are still indifferent to our core well-being. Our virtue, our character, our ability to respond with resilience. These remain untouched. Consider the legendary basketball player Michael Jordan. He famously said, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." Jordan undoubtedly faced immense disappointment after each loss, each missed shot. But he didn't allow those dispreferred externals to define him or deter him. He understood that the true good was his effort, his discipline, his practice, his virtue as an athlete. His response to disappointment was to learn, adapt, and redouble his efforts rather than to wallow in regret. He embraced the process knowing that the outcome, while desired, was not always guaranteed. This isn't about being passive or not striving for goals. Stoicism encourages us to set goals, to work hard, and to pursue preferred outcomes. But it also teaches us to attach our happiness not to the outcome itself, but to the effort and virtue we apply in the pursuit. If we do our best, act with integrity, and apply our reason, then even if the external result is not what we desired, we can find peace in knowing that we acted well. The disappointment then becomes less about failure and more about simply a different outcome, one which we can learn from. Finally, a powerful antidote to disappointment lies in cultivating Amor Fati, love of fate. This profound concept encourages us to not just accept what happens, but to genuinely embrace it, the good, the bad, and the indifferent, as part of the rich tapestry of life. It's about seeing every event, every twist and turn, as something that contributes to our growth and development, even if we don't understand its purpose in the moment. When disappointment strikes, instead of saying, "Why me? This shouldn't have happened," the Stoic perspective would gently guide us to ask, "How can I make the best of this? What can this teach me? How can I transform this challenge into an opportunity for growth?" This isn't forced optimism. It's a profound recognition that every moment, every experience holds a lesson if we are open to it. So, my friends, as we reflect on disappointment, let us remember these powerful Stoic insights, the practice of negative visualization, to cultivate gratitude for what we have, the wisdom of distinguishing between preferred externals and true goods to protect our inner peace, and the profound acceptance and embrace of Amor Fati, allowing us to find meaning and growth even in our setbacks. By gently loosening our grip on specific outcomes and focusing on what is truly within our control, our judgments, our efforts, and our character, we can transform the sting of disappointment into a deeper appreciation for the journey of life itself, with all its unpredictable turns. Welcome back, my friends, to our thoughtful journey into the heart of Stoic wisdom. We've explored the foundational ideas, delved into navigating anxiety and anger, and thoughtfully approached disappointment. Today, our conversation shifts to a concept that underpins much of Stoic practice: the importance of cultivating virtue. This isn't about being morally perfect in some lofty, unattainable way, but rather about developing a consistent inner compass that guides our actions regardless of external circumstances. You see, for the Stoics, virtue wasn't just a desirable trait, it was the sole good. Everything else, health, wealth, reputation, and pleasure, they considered indifferent. This doesn't mean these things are valueless, but rather that they don't inherently make us good people or lead to lasting happiness. True happiness, or eudaimonia, as the Greeks called it, comes from living in accordance with reason and virtue. It's an internal state independent of external conditions. Think about it this way. If your happiness is dependent on always having perfect health, or boundless wealth, or constant praise, you are setting yourself up for perpetual unease. These things are fleeting, subject to the whims of fate and the actions of others. But if your happiness is rooted in your character, in your commitment to wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, the four cardinal Stoic virtues, then you carry your happiness with you wherever you go, whatever challenges you face. Let's delve into these four virtues not as abstract ideals, but as practical guides for living. First, there's wisdom. This isn't just about accumulating facts or intellectual prowess. Stoic wisdom is practical wisdom, the ability to discern what is good, what is bad, and what is indifferent. The capacity to make sound judgments in complex situations, and the understanding of the true nature of things. It's the clarity of mind that allows us to apply the dichotomy of control, to recognize when our anxieties or anger stem from faulty judgments, and to reframe our disappointments. A wise person understands that while they can influence outcomes, they cannot control them, and therefore focuses their energy on what truly matters, their responses, and their character. Consider Socrates, who, though preceding the formal Stoic school, profoundly influenced its founders. He famously declared that the unexamined life is not worth living. His relentless pursuit of truth through questioning his commitment to intellectual honesty, and his courage in facing an unjust death, all exemplify Stoic wisdom. He valued understanding above all else, even when that understanding challenged popular opinion or led to personal hardship. His wisdom wasn't about knowing everything, but about knowing what he didn't know and continually striving to understand what was truly good. Next, we have justice. This virtue encompasses fairness, integrity, kindness, and treating others as we would wish to be treated. It's about acting in accordance with reason and the common good, recognizing our interconnectedness with all humanity. For the Stoics, injustice causes turmoil not just in the world, but within the soul of the person committing it. A just person acts with moral clarity even when it's difficult or unpopular, because their actions are aligned with reason and universal principles. Think of someone like Eleanor Roosevelt. While not explicitly a Stoic, her tireless advocacy for human rights, her compassion for the marginalized, and her unwavering commitment to social justice throughout her life, even in the face of significant opposition and personal challenges, deeply embody this Stoic virtue. She didn't seek personal gain or popularity. She acted from a deep sense of what was right and just dedicating her life to improving conditions for others. Her legacy is a powerful illustration of the profound impact of living a life guided by justice. Then comes courage. This isn't just physical bravery on a battlefield. Stoic courage is the fortitude to face adversity, not just external dangers, but also internal fears, temptations, and discomforts. It's the strength to act virtuously even when it's difficult to speak truth, to endure hardship, and to persevere in the pursuit of what is right. It's the courage to be vulnerable, to admit mistakes, and to embrace the challenging path of self-improvement. Imagine the courage of Malala Yousafzai, who faced down extreme adversity and violence for the simple right to education. Her story is one of profound courage, not just in surviving an attack, but in continuing to advocate for what she believed in, despite immense personal risk. Her bravery isn't about being fearless, it's about acting despite fear, driven by a deep conviction in the justice of her cause. This is precisely the kind of moral courage the Stoics championed. Finally, we have temperance or moderation, just self-control. This virtue is about exercising self-discipline, having control over our desires and impulses, and finding balance in all things. It's about not being enslaved by pleasure or aversion or external stimuli. A temperate person understands that true freedom comes not from indulging every whim, but from mastering their inner impulses. It's about living thoughtfully, consuming mindfully, and engaging with the world in a balanced and rational way. Consider the discipline of an accomplished artist or musician. Their mastery isn't achieved through impulsive action, but through countless hours of temperate practice, consistent effort, and disciplined self-control. They forego immediate gratification for the sake of long-term mastery and creation. This consistent self-controlled application of effort, guided by a clear vision, is a beautiful example of temperance in action. It's the kind of purposeful discipline that can lead to profound achievements and a deeply satisfying life. The Stoics believed that cultivating these virtues was the ultimate goal of life, because they are the only things that are entirely within our control. While we cannot guarantee external success, we can guarantee that we will strive to act with wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. And paradoxically, by focusing on these internal virtues, we often become more effective and resilient in navigating the external world. This isn't about becoming a rigid, emotionless being. It's about aligning our internal compass with what is truly good, so that when the winds of emotion or external circumstances threaten to blow us off, of course we have a firm anchor. When anxiety whispers wisdom helps us discern its validity. When anger flares, temperance helps us pause and redirect. When disappointment strikes, courage helps us persevere, and justice helps us find perspective beyond our personal loss. Cultivating virtue is a lifelong practice, not a destination. It requires constant self-reflection, honest assessment, and a commitment to continuous improvement. It's about asking ourselves in every situation, what would a wise, just courageous, and temperate person do here? And then striving to embody that ideal even imperfectly. It's a journey, not a race, and one that promises profound inner peace and a life well lived. Welcome back, my friends, as we continue our thoughtful conversation about the practical power of Stoicism. We've journeyed through the dichotomy of control, navigated the landscapes of anxiety, anger, and disappointment, and illuminated the profound importance of cultivating virtue. Today we're going to delve into a Stoic practice that might seem challenging at first glance, but offers immense liberation, voluntarily embracing discomfort and practicing adversity. Now, before you envision philosophers sleeping on beds of nails, let me clarify. This isn't about masochism or seeking out suffering for its own sake. Quite the opposite. This Stoic technique is about building resilience, fortifying our minds against the inevitable hardships of life, and recalibrating our perception of what is truly essential versus what is merely a preference. You see, in our modern lives, we've become accustomed to a remarkable level of comfort and convenience. While this is wonderful in many ways, it can also subtly weaken our resolve and make us more susceptible to distress when things don't go perfectly. We become soft, not in body, but in spirit, losing our appreciation for basic necessities and becoming easily rattled by minor inconveniences. The Stoics, particularly Seneca, frequently advocated for periodically practicing discomfort. This could involve simple acts like occasionally eating a plain meal when you're used to rich food, taking a cold shower, walking instead of driving for short distances, or even choosing to wear simpler clothes. The purpose isn't to punish ourselves, but to 1. Remind ourselves of our innate resilience. We often underestimate our capacity to endure discomfort. By voluntarily stepping outside our comfort zones, we prove to ourselves that we can manage perfectly well without certain luxuries or preferred conditions. This builds confidence in our ability to face genuine hardship when it inevitably arises. 2. Cultivate gratitude. When we intentionally experience a minor discomfort, it sharpens our appreciation for the comforts we usually enjoy. That warm shower after a cold one feels infinitely more luxurious. That simple meal tastes exquisite after a period of plain eating. This reestablishes a sense of gratitude for what we have, rather than taking it for granted. 3. Break the chains of attachment. We often become unconsciously attached to external comforts, allowing them to dictate our mood and well-being. By occasionally abstaining from them, we demonstrate to ourselves that our happiness isn't dependent on these externals. We gain a sense of inner freedom, knowing that we can find contentment even in less than ideal circumstances. Seneca advised, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content, with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress," saying to yourself, "Is this the condition that I feared?" He saw this as a powerful exercise not just for building mental toughness, but also for realizing that many of the things we fear losing are not as terrifying in their absence as we imagine. The fear of discomfort is often worse than the discomfort itself. Consider someone like Captain Sully Sullenberger, the pilot who successfully landed a crippled airliner on the Hudson River. While his actions were extraordinary, they weren't born out of thin air. Pilots undergo rigorous training, including simulators, that expose them to extreme and uncomfortable scenarios. They practice emergencies not because they wish for them, but because this voluntary exposure to simulated adversity prepares them to act with calm and competence when real adversity strikes. While not a direct Stoic practice, the underlying principle is the same. Premeditated discomfort builds practical resilience for unforeseen challenges. This practice is not about self-deprivation in a permanent sense, but about intermittent conscious choices. It's about being the master of your preferences, not their slave. It's about recognizing that you prefer warmth, but you can tolerate cold. You prefer rich food, but you can manage on simple fare. This distinction is crucial for emotional resilience. Another facet of embracing discomfort is the Stoic approach to perceived misfortunes. When something negative happens, perhaps a minor injury, a broken appliance, a flat tire, our immediate reaction might be frustration or anger. The Stoic practice here is to view these inconveniences not as misfortunes, but as opportunities for practice. Epictetus famously used the analogy of an athlete. An athlete welcomes challenging opponents not because they enjoy the struggle, but because it pushes them to become stronger. Similarly, when life presents us with difficulties, we can view them as opportunities to practice our stoicism, to exercise patience, to apply reason to cultivate resilience. Did your internet go out just when you needed it most? Instead of fuming, can you practice patience? Can you find another task that doesn't require connectivity? Can you simply accept the momentary disruption? This is a small training exercise in dealing with things outside your control. Did you miss an important appointment due to unforeseen traffic? Can you practice understanding rather than self-recrimination or anger at external circumstances? Can you use the extra time in traffic to practice present moment awareness or to contemplate something meaningful? These are not grand life-altering events, but the accumulation of how we respond to these daily nudges of discomfort and minor adversity shapes our character. Each time we choose a rational, composed response over an emotional, reactive one, we strengthen our inner muscle of self-control and resilience. We become more robust, less easily swayed by the winds of fortune. Consider James Stockdale, an American aviator who was a prisoner of war in Vietnam for over 7 years, enduring torture and isolation. He credited his survival and his ability to emerge with his dignity intact to his understanding and application of Stoic philosophy. He faced unimaginable and involuntary discomfort, yet his voluntary mental preparation and his unwavering commitment to virtue allowed him to endure. He focused on what was within his control: his attitude, his commitment to his fellow prisoners, his refusal to betray his country, and accepted what was not. His ability to withstand such immense suffering exemplifies the ultimate outcome of consistently practicing resilience and embracing adversity even when it is forced upon you. This approach to discomfort and adversity is not about being passive or uncaring. It's about developing an internal fortress, a mind that is not easily disturbed by external events. It's about building a profound sense of inner freedom, knowing that your well-being doesn't hinge on perfect circumstances, but on your own disciplined and virtuous response to whatever life throws your way. So, my friends, as we reflect on this aspect of Stoicism, I invite you to consider small ways you might voluntarily embrace discomfort in your daily life. Perhaps it's choosing the stairs instead of the elevator, taking a slightly longer walk, or simply pausing before reaching for a common indulgence. And when minor inconveniences or setbacks occur, can you view them not as annoyances, but as opportunities to practice your stoicism, to sharpen your inner tools? In these small, consistent acts, we build the formidable resilience that allows us to master our emotions and navigate the journey of life with profound equanimity. Well, welcome back, my friends, to our thoughtful journey into the heart of Stoic wisdom. We've explored the foundational ideas, navigated the landscapes of anxiety, anger, and disappointment, illuminated the profound importance of cultivating virtue, and even touched upon the quiet strength found in voluntarily embracing discomfort. Today, our conversation will turn to a concept that might initially seem counterintuitive, yet is profoundly liberating understanding and accepting impermanence, and with it, the Stoic view of mortality. It might feel a little somber to speak of impermanence and death, especially when we are seeking techniques for mastering emotions. But the Stoics, with their profound realism, saw that much of our anxiety, disappointment, and even anger stems from our resistance to the fundamental truth that everything in this life is temporary. Our youth, our health, our possessions, our relationships, even life itself, all are in a constant state of flux, constantly moving towards an end. Resisting this truth is like trying to hold water in your hands. It's a futile exercise that only leads to frustration. The Stoics didn't dwell on death out of morbid fascination, but rather as a powerful tool for living more fully, more virtuously, and with less attachment. They practiced memento mori, remember that you will die. This wasn't meant to induce fear, but to serve as a catalyst for appreciation and right action in the present moment. Think about it when we truly grasp that our time is finite, that every breath is a gift. Does it not sharpen our focus on what truly matters? Does it not make us less inclined to squander our precious moments on trivialities, unproductive worries, or petty grievances? When we understand that every conversation with a loved one could be our last, doesn't it make us more present, more loving, more forgiving? Seneca, in his letters, frequently reminded himself and his readers of the brevity of life. He urged us to begin at once to live and count each separate day a separate life. This isn't about rushing through life, but about living each day with intention, as if it were a complete existence in itself. If you woke up each morning truly internalizing that this could be your last day, how might your priorities shift? Would you hold grudges? Would you procrastinate on expressing love or forgiveness? Would you waste hours on things that don't genuinely align with your values? This contemplation of impermanence is a powerful antidote to several emotional challenges. For anxiety. Much anxiety is rooted in worrying about a distant future. Memento mori helps to ground us in the present, reminding us that the only moment we truly possess is now. By focusing on acting well today, we mitigate worries about the uncertain tomorrow. For anger. When we hold on to anger, we are often wasting precious moments of our finite lives. Remembering our own mortality can provide a profound perspective shift, urging us to release resentment and focus on more constructive emotions and actions. Is this grudge truly worth the valuable time it consumes in your limited existence? For disappointment. Disappointment often arises from attachments to outcomes that fail to materialize. Understanding impermanence helps us to loosen our grip on these externals. If a cherished possession breaks or a plan falls apart, the Stoic reminds us that all things are temporary. Our true well-being is not dependent on the durability of objects or the infallibility of plans, but on our inner resilience and virtue. Consider the profound wisdom of Steve Jobs' 2005 Stanford commencement address. He spoke candidly about his own brushes with death and how facing his mortality clarified his priorities. Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life, he said. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. While not a Stoic philosopher, his experience perfectly illustrates the practical power of memento mori to strip away trivial concerns and focus us on living authentically. This isn't about being fatalistic. It's about being realistic and appreciative. The Stoics didn't say, because we will die, nothing matters. Instead, they said, because we will die, only what is truly important matters. And for them, what was truly important was living a virtuous life, acting with wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Another aspect of this is recognizing the impermanence of all things around us. The beautiful sunset, the laughter of children, the comfort of your home, all are temporary. This isn't a cause for sadness, but a call to fully appreciate them while they are here. When we cherish moments because we know they won't last forever, we infuse them with deeper meaning and gratitude. Think of Marcus Aurelius constantly reminding himself that the people around him, the duties he faced, the very breath he took, were temporary. He urged himself to act with kindness and diligence because the opportunity to do so would not last forever. "Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years, he wrote. "Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good." This was not a morbid obsession, but a powerful motivator for ethical action and present engagement. The acceptance of impermanence also helps us with loss and grief. While grief is a natural and necessary human response to loss, the Stoic perspective helps us to navigate it with greater equanimity. We learn to appreciate the time we had with a loved one, acknowledging that their life, like ours, was a temporary gift. We focus on the virtue of their life and the lessons they imparted, rather than being consumed by the pain of their absence, knowing that resistance to the natural order of things only prolongs our suffering. This practice is not about becoming cold or detached. It's about loving deeply without clinging possessively. It's about engaging fully with life's experiences, both joyful and sorrowful, with the understanding that they are all part of the natural flow. By accepting the impermanence of all things, we free ourselves from the painful illusion of control over what cannot be controlled. We learn to dance with life's changes rather than fighting against them. So, my friends, as we reflect on this profound aspect of Stoic thought, I invite you to gently contemplate the impermanence in your own life. Consider the things and people you hold dear, and without fear, simply acknowledge their temporary nature. See how this understanding can deepen your appreciation for them in the present moment. Allow it to strip away the trivial concerns that steal your peace and redirect your energy towards what truly matters, living a life of virtue, intention, and profound gratitude. In accepting life's fleeting nature, we paradoxically unlock a deeper, more enduring joy. Welcome back, my friends, to the penultimate part of our enriching conversation on mastering emotions with the enduring wisdom of Stoicism. We've journeyed through the core tenets, tackled anxiety, anger, and disappointment, embraced virtue, and even found strength in confronting discomfort and accepting impermanence. Today we turn our focus to perhaps the most practical and continuous Stoic practice, mindfulness and self-awareness, the daily examination. In a world brimming with distractions where our minds are constantly pulled in myriad directions by news, social media, obligations, and worries, the Stoics understood the vital importance of bringing our attention back to ourselves, to our thoughts, and to our actions. This isn't about navel-gazing or self-absorption. It's about intentional self-observation to ensure we are living in alignment with our values and our reason. It's about being the captain of your own ship, constantly checking the compass and adjusting the sails rather than being tossed about by every passing wave. The Stoics were proponents of a rigorous daily examination of conscience, particularly at the beginning and end of each day. This wasn't a punitive exercise, but a calm, rational review of one's thoughts, reactions, and actions. It was a time for learning, for adjustment, and for growth. Think about the start of your day. Instead of immediately diving into emails or the news, a Stoic might begin with a moment of reflection. Marcus Aurelius, in his meditations, often reminded himself of the kind of person he wanted to be and the virtues he intended to embody throughout the day. He would mentally prepare himself for the challenges he might face, reminding himself that others might be difficult, that setbacks might occur, but that his own response was always within his control. This is a form of proactive mindfulness, setting an intention for how you will engage with the day, rather than merely reacting to it. This morning reflection might involve recalling the dichotomy of control. What are my goals for today? Which aspects are within my control? My effort, attitude, choices, and which are not outcomes, other people's reactions. Setting virtuous intentions. How can I practice wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance today? Can I be patient in traffic, compassionate to a difficult colleague, courageous in speaking my truth, or temperate in my consumption? anticipating potential challenges. Where might my emotions be tested? Can I mentally rehearse a rational Stoic response to those potential triggers? This mindful start helps to prime your mind, setting a tone of intentionality and preparedness. It's like a seasoned athlete mentally walking through their performance before the event, visualizing success and anticipating hurdles. But the real power of this practice often comes at the end of the day, with the evening self-examination. This is a time for quiet introspection, a moment to review the day's events with an objective, discerning eye. Seneca again provides powerful guidance here. He described his own evening ritual. When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and go over what I have done and said, I conceal nothing from myself, I pass nothing by. For why should I be afraid of any of my mistakes when I can say, see that you do not do this again, but now I forgive you. Notice the tone here. It's not harsh self-condemnation, but gentle, firm self-correction. It's about accountability learning and compassionate self-improvement. This evening reflection might involve asking yourself, where did my emotions get the better of me today? Did anxiety grip me unnecessarily? Did anger cause me to speak or act rashly? Did disappointment linger too long? What judgments did I make that led to unhelpful emotions? Did I assume ill intent? Did I cling to an outcome that was not in my control? Did I act in accordance with my values and virtues? Was I wise in my decisions? Was I just in my interactions? Did I demonstrate courage when it was needed? Was I temperate in my habits? What could I have done differently? How could I have responded more rationally, more virtuously, more calmly? What went well? Where did I apply Stoic principles effectively? What can I celebrate and reinforce? This daily audit isn't about perfection. It's about progress. It's about building self-awareness, identifying patterns in our emotional reactions, and making incremental improvements. Just as a gardener tends to their plants daily, observing their needs and pruning where necessary, we too must tend to our inner garden. Consider someone like Benjamin Franklin, who, though not a Stoic in name, meticulously practiced a similar form of daily self-improvement. He famously kept a journal where he tracked his adherence to 13 virtues, reflecting each evening on where he succeeded and where he fell short. His goal wasn't to achieve instant perfection, but through consistent daily self-assessment, to make steady progress towards becoming the person he aspired to be. This rigorous self-awareness was fundamental to his remarkable achievements and personal growth. The power of this daily examination lies in its ability to interrupt habitual, unhelpful patterns. Many of our emotional reactions are automatic, deeply ingrained. By consistently reflecting on them, we bring them to conscious awareness. This awareness is the first step towards choosing a different path, towards responding with reason rather than mere reaction. Moreover, this practice strengthens our internal locus of control. It reinforces the idea that we are not passive victims of our emotions or circumstances, but active agents with the power to shape our inner world. Each evening as you review your day, you are essentially affirming, I am in charge of my mind. I can learn from my mistakes. I can choose to be better tomorrow. This daily ritual also fosters patience and self-compassion. We won't be perfect every day. There will be days when our emotions run wild, when we succumb to old habits. But the Stoic approach isn't about self-flagellation. It's about recognizing the error, understanding its root, and committing to trying again tomorrow. The forgiveness Seneca spoke of is crucial, acknowledging the mistake, learning from it, and then moving forward without dwelling in unproductive guilt. So, my friends, as we conclude this part of our conversation, I invite you to consider incorporating this simple yet profound practice of daily self-examination into your own life. Start small, perhaps just a few minutes each evening before bed. Ask yourself, where did I react today, and where did I respond with intention? What could I have done better, and what did I do well? This consistent, gentle, yet rigorous self-awareness is the bedrock upon which true emotional mastery is built. It is the steady hand that guides the ship of your life towards a calmer, more purposeful horizon.